but we're going to move on to our major presenters this morning. Both of them have done a study on small hotels and the way that they can save actual energy in hotels. So this is actual case study in action. And first we'll have Ms. Loreto Duffy-Mayers. She's the project manager for the project, and it's called the Caribbean Hotel Energy Efficiency Action Project, or CHENACT, and it's funded by the IDB. It's a project designed to improve the competitiveness of small to medium-sized hotels in the Caribbean through greater energy efficiency and the use of renewable energy in microgeneration. So let's give a warm welcome to Ms. Loreto Duffy-Mayers.
Good morning, everyone. In Barbados, good morning can oftentimes vary between a very bright good morning to So I think this morning I'm hoping it'll be a very bright good morning, everyone. Okay, I wanted to start by just drawing your attention to the fact that the CHENACT project, as you can see, there's a lot of logos on the bottom here. This project, oh gosh, is this working now? How does this go forward? Oh, that one, yeah. Yes, if you notice on along the bottom there, we've got several logos, and I'm going to have to give some kudos, of course, to all of those organizations that have funded CHENACT. Let me go on and just show you exactly who they are. IDB is the major funder, but of course we have also the German, well, that should be GIZ now since they've changed their name, the German Institute for Technology, the CDE, which is the Centre for Development of Enterprise from the EU, United Nations Environment Programme, Barbados Light and Power Company, Government of Barbados, and Barbados Hotel and Tourism Association have all funded either in cash or in kind this project. It's implemented by the CTO with the technical and operational support of the Caribbean Hotel and Tourism Association and the Caribbean Alliance for Sustainable Tourism. Just to make sure that you understand the acronyms here, the CHTA is the umbrella organization over the national hotel associations in all of the countries. The CAST is the Caribbean Alliance for Sustainable Tourism, and it's the green arm of CHTA, and the only private sector organisation really in the region that is looking at sustainable tourism. Thirdly, of course, CTO, as you know, is the umbrella organisation over the ministries of tourism. So therefore, it is again a good example of private sector, public sector collaboration. We've split our presentation into two sections. I'm looking at the first half, which is basically the introduction to and the objectives, the audits and the results of them, the project achievements, carbon footprints, and ODS audits. And then I will pass on to Ujwal, who is going to look at the green investment side of things. Okay, the objective. Initially, the objective was to improve the competitiveness of the small and medium-sized hotels, which is less than 400 rooms in the Caribbean. As you would all be aware, 400 rooms is as big as they get in most of our islands, with the exception of, obviously, Jamaica, Cuba, Dominican Republic, Mexico. But really and truly, most of us, and in particular in Barbados, 400 is our actual maximum size. And we're looking at improving the competitiveness through more efficient use of energy and hopefully renewables and microgeneration, while assisting the governments to meet the international obligations in terms of emissions of greenhouse gases and phasing out the ozone depleting substances. We are looking to move the hotels towards higher energy efficiency. And we've looked at some of the microgeneration possibilities and some of the renewable energy possibilities, but obviously, we have to ensure that we put energy efficiency into place before we start looking at renewables. It doesn't make sense putting up PV panels if the organisation or the property is not already energy efficient. We've also looked at analysing the existence or existing Caribbean energy service companies to provide competitive and efficient services. I will explain a little bit further in a couple of slides down about the energy service companies and their roles. And looking at the possibilities of preparing a programmatic clean development mechanism. And again, that's looking at the possibility of selling carbon credits in the region. Why is this not? It's just not happening. Yeah, okay. Okay, how we actually went about this project was we conducted detailed energy audits in 31 hotels in Barbados. And these detailed energy audits, you know, they range between 3 to 5 days in some hotels and maybe 10 to 12 days in others, depending on the size of the hotel and also depending on the level of information that was already available in the property. You know, we assume that what look like efficient hotels have all the information to hand. We discovered that to our detriment was not the case. We did walk-through assessments in 30 hotels, and these tended to be the smaller ones. So all in all, 61 hotels in Barbados was a sample size of approximately 66% of the hotels in Barbados, which is a major sample, which in itself generated a lot of difficulties in the sense that, you know, we were asking for information voluntarily. It was not, you know, obvious, and so, you know, you are going to hotels and you're asking them to give us information, and we're trying to explain to them that we're going to give them back something. In a lot of cases, we found that the hotels found it so difficult to give us the information. A lot of them were not able to tell us their real occupancy figures. A lot of them were not able to give us their energy information, whether it be electricity, gas, diesel, whatever they were using. Most of them did not know their water information. And in order to conduct the audits as well as we possibly could, we had given them a checklist in advance. We found in some cases it took 6 months to get that kind of information out of some of the hotels. And I can tell you, some of the better hotels, we had difficulties getting that kind of information. So I think one of the learning, one of the things that we did learn out of this project is that we never assumed that the hotels actually know the status of their own operation. In some cases, we actually had to go in and assist them to collect this information. The same applied in the 12 hotels that we did audits in the OECS. The OECS countries that participated were Antigua, St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Vincent, St. Lucia and Grenada. Unfortunately, we had great difficulty getting any kind of cooperation from Dominica. We tried endlessly to get hotels to join in, and again, it was the difficulties in getting information was the problem. We hope maybe in phase 2 of the project we might be able to rectify that. We did detailed audits in 5 hotels in the greater Caribbean region, and that basically was 2 in Tobago, 2 in Dominican Republic, and 1 in Jamaica. And again, the same thing applied. Information was difficult to come by. We also did ozone depleting substance audits in Barbados, and that was the United Nations Environment Programme contribution to the project. The audits themselves, now it's really working hard. Okay. The detailed audit reports provided incredibly detailed information to the hotels when we finally were able to produce the reports. And, you know, we were able to give them serious recommendations on how they could improve the energy efficiency and obviously water, because we did take into account water when we started the audits. We were able to provide them with information on exactly what they were using their energy on, what it was going to cost them to actually become efficient, what their annual savings would be. We've been able to show them the payback period, the total kilowatt hours that they're using and the total kilowatt hours that can be saved, and the carbon dioxide emissions. We're able to show them an internal rate of return, the net present value of the project, and we were able to show them in most cases, and Ujwal will actually go into this in more detail, we were able to show the hotels that it was far more in their interest to invest money in improving the energy efficiency in their properties than it is to put the money into the bank and let it sit there and earn these ridiculously low interest rates that they're now being paid. What we did discover was the majority of hotels in Barbados and even in the others, there's a potential savings of a minimum of about 30% in most of the hotels. Some can even go as high as 50%. The appendices that were added to it, they got all their energy meter readings and the data loggers, heat load results, there was an energy management matrix, there was single line utility diagrams given, the electrical designs, and most importantly, I think, the energy accounting exercise and the savings calculations. So this now enables all of these hotels to walk into their bank, or in the case in Barbados where we now have this new smart fund, they could walk in with the detailed energy audits in hand, their spreadsheet showing how bankable the project is and how their ability to actually make the sort of repayments required. And we are also assisting some of the hotels to actually put together a whole presentation for the Smart Fund. The surprising thing about water, I mean, water has increased by 60% in Barbados over the last year, a year and a half. And the majority of hotels we found, leaks were costing them between 20 and 50% of their water bills. We found leaking toilets, we found leaking faucets, we found underground pipes, we found cooling towers, swimming pools, all leaking. And it was absolutely amazing, some of the figures that we found. We found a leak at one of the largest hotels, which was costing them approximately $330,000 per annum. And they were not aware of it. I mean, that's a significant amount of money in any size hotel. But this hotel, amazingly, were actually reading their meters every single day. Sometimes twice a day they were reading their meters, but nobody actually sat down and analysed the figures that were being produced. We found that, of course, again, this is something that we have a problem throughout the region, is that water meters tend not to work. Because most of the water companies are actually public companies as opposed to private sector, we found that, oftentimes a water meter doesn't work, and a year later they start getting bills from the water company, and it's no fault of the hotels. Although they report them as not being working, oftentimes it takes so long to get these meters repaired that it's very difficult to tell what the actual water usage in some cases is. In this particular case, this hotel, if you have a look at the bar chart, the very first one will show you that between go to the fourth one. Between 2 and 4 o'clock in the morning and between 4 and 6 o'clock in the morning, that hotel was using almost 50,000 cubic meters per hour. Sorry, in that space of time, between 2 and 4, 50,000 cubic meters of water. Now, if you multiply that by 220, that just goes to show you the amount of water that hotel was actually using. 220 gallons to 1 cubic meter, right? That gives you like 13,000 gallons of water was going down into the ground every single hour. And they were not aware, because this, when the engineers come in and they see this is what the water usage, they assume that that's correct. Nobody had actually analysed and had plotted it in this way so that they could see that between 2 o'clock in the morning and 6 o'clock in the morning, their usage should have been zero. There's nothing happening, there's nothing open, there's no bars open, there's no restaurants open. Even if every one of the guests in the hotel, and there was a potential, say, 300 guests in the hotel, if every one of them got up and used the bathroom, that's still, their low flush toilet should only carry, let's say, at most, maybe 1.2, 1.5 gallons of water. So therefore, they couldn't even have used 2 cubic meters. But what the auditors had done was they had stayed up all night long, they read the meters every hour, and they told me that between 2 and 6 o'clock, the meters weren't turning, they were actually galloping. So that nobody had actually done an exercise like that to ensure that the meters that should not be running are actually, they shouldn't be running. There should be nothing happening. And it's an exercise you should probably all do in your own households. Have a look to see, some night or early morning, check to see that between 2 and 6, when everybody's asleep, that your water meter is not working, is not running, because if it is, you have a leak somewhere that could be costing you quite a substantial amount of money. And remember, it does take energy to pump water. So when all of this water was running into the ground, energy figures were actually were reflecting this too. Some of the achievements out of Chinact, right, this has been a totally new learning curve for hotels. Energy conservation was not new to hotels. Yes, we've all grew up probably, in an era where we were told to switch off and unplug, and we didn't, develop to the extent of where we were saying, well, at least turn off the computer monitors at night time. Make sure that the split system, the air conditioning is either off, and even when it is on, that we have it at certain temperatures between 19 and 23, all of that kind of thing. But I mean, that at this point in time, that basically, that was the low-hanging fruit that we looked at. So we were not, we were not sort of ignorant about energy, but we were not very, very well advanced. And the whole concept of energy efficiency as an investment, however, is a very new concept. And we'll discuss that a little bit in more detail a little later. Again, this low-hanging fruit that we talk about, of switching off and plugging out and all of that already is done. There should be no more low-hanging fruit in this day and age on our trees. We should already have made sure that for example, anybody who has incandescent lights in their property in this day and age should really be considering whether they should be in business or not. If you've not already changed out into compact fluorescent lamps at this stage, that's at least the minimum. Most hotels, I would say, should at least have in their short to medium term plans a change out from CFLs into LEDs by now, because the technology is changing all the time. And we did discover in so many hotels that they had chillers and they have fridges and they have washing machines, and they would tell you, oh, we've had that for the last 20 years, it hasn't cost us a cent. Unfortunately, it is costing you probably the bulk of your energy costs, because technology changes so often. It's important to keep up with the changes and replace equipment, because otherwise you will end up falling way behind. The audit reports, as I said there earlier, they did require a certain amount of information in advance, and we've discovered that a lot of the hotels do not have it. That's another whole area that we have to look at, and we are in discussion, obviously, in Barbados with the Hotel and Tourism Association as to how we can upgrade the information gathering in the hotels so that won't happen in the future, that we would be able to say to a hotel, well, okay, come on, we want your energy information for the last 3 years, and they should be able to give it to us like that. Your occupancy information and your water information, we should be able to access that much more easily in the future. We have discovered, obviously, that energy and water go hand in hand, which was something that most people really didn't realise. Excuse me. We also discovered that a lot of the hotels were paying way more than they should have for their energy, for the simple reason that in some cases they had more than one electricity meter. In some cases they had 3, they had 5, they had 6. In one of the largest hotels, they actually had 28 meters on the property. Now, they were paying way more than they should have, when they could have been on the large voltage rate. So immediately, that they were, when we showed them on their spreadsheet what the savings that were generated without actually using less electricity. The energy service company concept we really introduced to the region, because we did find that these energy service companies did not really exist. Now, basically, an energy service company, probably in the simplest form, is a company that could walk into your hotel and say, okay, fine, we recognize that you need to spend $500,000 to completely retrofit this property. New lighting, new air conditioning, new pool pumps, new whatever. Okay, we'll do it for you, but you will pay us back out of the savings. So in other words, if you're going to save $50,000 a month, we're going to take $25,000 until such time as you've paid us back, and then some. And you will also get the benefit of the savings as well. That's the simplest form. But unfortunately, you need to have a very well-capitalized energy savings company to be able to do that, because it only takes one failure and you're out of business, okay? So we found that they do exist in Mexico, they tend to exist in parts of Canada, but not really in the region. We held a workshop in Jamaica, and we invited quite a number of people attended the meeting, but we found that, yes, we can find energy service companies that are willing maybe to do maybe your air conditioning, some might be willing to do the lighting, etc. But we found that there were very, very few. But there is certainly opportunities for companies within the region to work on that basis. We did find companies that would be willing to go and arrange the funding for you through the bank. Let's say they would have their own bankers and they would go to the bank and they'd introduce you and they would guarantee the savings, and they would say to the bank, well, okay, you lend to this guy, the hotel takes the money from the bank, the hotel gives them the money, they put in the equipment, and then the hotel pays back the bank. It's a less than ideal situation, because if that ESCO disappears, you're left with holding the baby, literally. We also looked at the power offtake agreements with the utility companies. Obviously, you know, we have now a situation in Barbados now where anybody is allowed to self-generate, first of all, but secondly, we also have now people who are able to put in PV systems and who are able to sell back to the grid, and so agreements between the utility companies and people who are generating energy has now taken off. It's still in the pilot stage, but we are hoping that that's going to expand. We also did make a recommendation that the utility companies themselves should look at the possibility of becoming energy service companies, because we had calculated that should all the hotels in Barbados become energy efficient, the light and power company stands to lose in excess of $8 million a year. Now, you know, there are implications straight away. One, in some ways, it's a good thing, because they can say, well, you know, we now can save some money in plant expansion. We don't need to expand our plant the way we thought we would, because the hotels have reduced their rates. However, we do know that they make their profits on the energy that they sell to us. So if the big people, the big hotels, are reducing their consumption, unfortunately the domestic rates are probably likely to go up, because in most countries the commercial rate is subsidizing the domestic rate. However, if those energy service companies were to take on the role, the utility companies were to take on the role of the energy service companies and supply the equipment for the hotels, there may be a way that they could actually make some more money for themselves in that role. The clean development mechanism is one that we are looking at in phase 2, where we are going to develop a program of activities for the hotel sector in the region to enable us to look at the sale of carbon credits. We have, as you can see there, we have managed to calculate in 96 hotels in Barbados, the annual electricity consumption is almost 82,000 megawatts per year, and there's a potential the carbon emissions there is in the region of 60,000 tons of carbon. The new technologies that we introduced was obviously the LEDs, and we're recommending to the hotels that they start looking at these. These are 4 or 5 times more efficient than CFLs. They are currently quite costly, but the longevity, I think, has been proven. We have a new company in Barbados that is guaranteeing 5 years on the LEDs that they sell. We've recommended that they put in VRV systems to replace the individual mini splits with heat recovery for hot water. We've looked at variable frequency drives for pool pumps and obviously PV systems, and we are doing 3 demonstration projects in Barbados shortly. The expansion of the next move now is to expand throughout the region. The advanced program is moving into the Bahamas and Jamaica, where the program of activities, as I've already mentioned. The SMART Fund, which as a result of CHNACT and the Sustainable Energy Framework in Barbados, we now have a fund of $10 million for which small to medium-sized enterprises can borrow from for energy efficiency. And obviously the hotels fall into that category. We expect to have applications in by the end of this month for 6 of the hotels in Barbados. We are working with the national ozone units throughout the region, again, raising awareness and trying to get funding for the phase out of the ozone depleting substances. We in Barbados are behind on that, and it's something that we have recognised, is that the ozone depleting substances in the refrigerants, obviously, that are being used in the air conditioning units and in the fridges, we are using a ridiculously high figure. I think something like 96% of what was being used in the ACs and in the fridges are ozone depleting substances, and by now we should have commenced the phase out. However, we are working on that at the moment. Our clean energy policy, which we developed for the hotel sector, will be incorporated into the Tourism Master Plan, the Tourism Development Act, the national energy policy, and we are hoping to replicate that throughout the region too. And I mentioned the PV demo models. Did that just go? Yeah. Okay, great, okay. I am now going to hand you over to Dr. Ujwal Bhattacharjee, who is the consultant from Tetra Tech that has been working on the Chinook project with us, and he's going to speak to the question of energy efficiency as an investment in the hotels in the region.